Humanities and literature have been on the decline in universities, and I want to talk a little bit about how detrimental that has been, how important the humanities and literature are, and commend you for being a rebel and being a guardian of this knowledge while we go through this rough time and work on sorting it out and restoring it to where it should be. So, in the past, for hundreds of years, people read classical literature at home. That was the reading that people did. People were familiar with great works of literature, from Shakespeare to Chaucer to Virginia Woolf to William Faulkner. People sat in their living rooms and read it. Um, a bunch of things happened, I think, that started to erode that, and we're especially in a bad situation now. But I think the last person I mentioned on that random list of authors was William Faulkner, and I would say about the time that Faulkner was writing, that was pretty much the same time that people were sitting in their living rooms reading and not watching TV. So the television became a fixture in people's homes right about that time. And I think technology obviously is something that has sort of damaged our reading abilities and our desire to read. You can follow it from the TV all the way up until AI right now, right? I think we've all heard enough about technology for the time being, so I want to concentrate on some other things here. Um, we have political challenges. Um, the university has always been a political place, but we're in a very tight spot right now. I think there are factors from the political right, conservatives, that have damaged humanities and literature in the university, but there are also some things from the political left or the liberal wing that have damaged humanities. And I want to talk a little bit about both of them. I don't want to make a false equivalency. Just factually speaking, the political left supports education more than the political right. That's where we can usually count on for our funding. The idea of freedom of speech and thought. These are sort of, left-wing ideas. So I don't want anyone to come away thinking that I think that the political left is as bad as the political right when it comes to not supporting education, but they're both they're both to blame for certain things, right? So I just want to go over some of these things that are in my head. So, starting with, the low-hanging fruit, it's easy to complain about the political right. For a long time, decades and decades, I think the political right has sort of connected university education with the marketplace. The political left has done it to a point, but I think it began with, the business savvy politicians, right? Um, this sort of resulted in a lot of defunding of the university. If it's not connected to the marketplace, if it's not job training, then let's take the money away. And this started, I would say, really started in earnest with Ronald Reagan. He did a lot of defunding of education. We can look, into the future with George W. Bush, who I think had some good intentions, but he brought in this idea of No Child Left Behind, which was a public school initiative, but it turned everything into standardized testing and really damaged critical thinking, and that filtered up to the universities. Um, in our current time right now, I think there's a misunderstanding of what the humanities are in the right wing, and in a lot of cases, a disdain for what the humanities are. Um, we could talk about our current administration, what a disaster that is, but we're all tired of that too. But when you have a Secretary of Education who doesn't know what artificial intelligence is, that's a problem. Um, it's not all the political right. The political left has really contributed to the decline of humanities in the universities also, and especially the decline of literature, I would say. Um, so I think on the liberal side, there's been a lot of emphasis on STEM fields as not only a place where we need, a lot of jobs, but also a place where there's an opportunity for social equality. And again, I think this is a good idea. To have a diverse set of people working in the STEM fields is obviously a good idea, but it's been done in a way that has sort of left the humanities behind. I haven't heard anything from the left talking about how important it is to have a diverse set of people in the humanities. I think there have been some factions of the left wing who have positioned the university as sort of an opposition to conservative thought. Rather than pursuing, a sort of free thinking and knowledge creation that universities are built to do, there's been this oppositional position created that causes a lot of confrontational political strife. Now, universities are political places, and going to university is going to usually lead you toward a little bit more of a sort of a free liberal thought, because it's the pursuit of knowledge. It's a reaction against conservatism that keeps knowledge from growing, things like that, right? And that's always been sort of like student driven. But I think that something has become ingrained now where there's a little bit more political emphasis behind it. Another thing I think that the political left has done is to challenge the literary canon. I think challenging the literary canon is a good idea. I think it's something that is exciting to think about and something that we need to do as a society for the sake of equality and for the sake of representation of all the great writers who are out there. However, I think that's been done sometimes in the wrong way. I think that oftentimes this eagerness to include a more diverse set of people in the literary canon has caused people to want to burn down the current literary canon and not really have a very good plan for what to do with it. I think the things that are in the canon right now are there because they are so good. They deserve to be there. We just need to broaden the canon, but there's not a lot of agreement about how to do that. So some of the results of this have been things like making it up as we go. So, professors are expected to not necessarily teach the canon, but there aren't any solid traditions to fall back on. And it makes it sort of a mess. It makes it seem like we don't have the strong tradition that we used to. So, very exciting work with the canon. I'm in favor of it, but we need to think very carefully about what should be in the canon, what is in the canon, why it's in there, and what this can look like so that we can preserve a great literary tradition that we can keep stable. So both the left and the right have contributed to the downfall of literary studies and humanities in the university, and sometimes it feels like we're hanging on by a thread. One of the problems that comes from both the left and the right is that they have turned college education into a commodity. Professors, like me, are here to provide a service. Students are the customers who receive that service and pay for it. That's just not the way things are supposed to work in university. It's really hard to get back to the way things are supposed to be because tuition has skyrocketed, and it's kind of hard to make the case that this isn't a commodity, but yet it's something you're paying a bunch for, right? So what we need to do is, first of all, I think tuition should just be eliminated, but we at the very least need to start to realize that a college education is not job training, and it's not a piece of paper that allows somebody to do something. College education always has meant that you go and learn in a community and become a better citizen, become a better critical thinker, and become a strong, self-actualized person who can take any next step into any job that they choose to do. That's what a college education is supposed to be. The professors and the students should be colleagues with each other who are working toward bettering society. There's yet another thing that I think is sort of causing problems with the humanities in universities right now, especially in literature, and I would say that is the rise of critical theory. I teach critical theory. I teach literary theory and critical theory, so I don't want to say that it's useless because I think it's awesome and I love teaching it. I think it's important and I think there's a lot we can learn from it. I also think a lot of people have misused it. Um, Critical theory is something that is meant to be a reading tool, and it's meant to help us to look at things in a particular way so that we can learn from that perspective. It's not meant as being, it's not meant to be a manual for how to live your life, and it's not meant to be a political ideology. But unfortunately, um, critical theory has become sort of the center of literary studies, and a lot of people are using critical theory not just to interpret literature and to learn and to create knowledge, but to forward a larger ideology in real life. Now, while things that we understand and learn through critical theory can influence how we live our lives, it should not become an ideology that we live our life by. And I think that has caused a lot of conflict. And I think we should think really carefully about how critical theory fits into literature, why we've made it the center of literature, and what can we do next that's productive and not destructive. Yet another thing that I kind of hate to admit that I think has damaged humanities in the university is that faculty are retained more according to what research they've done and how much they've published than how well they're teaching. So my job depends more on the research that I'm doing than it depends on how well I'm teaching everybody in my classes. And I obviously work really hard to be a good teacher, as good as I can be, but that's a trend that has been happening in universities for a long time. Um, Literature is no longer a teaching field. Literature is a research field, and it's a highly specialized research field. So the field of literature now has become inaccessible to the general public. You remember a minute ago I was talking about how, people used to sit in their living rooms and read the classics, and that's what regular people did. Now that accessibility is gone, and literature is sort of this elite kind of field that regular people don't have much to do with. And I think that needs to change immediately because it's not the way it's meant to be. I think there is a movement in public. There are people out there who are already really sick and tired of all this internet thinking, all of this fast and shallow thinking we're doing, all of our attention span being pulled everywhere, who are consciously sitting down and reconnecting with books and understanding the value of sustained reading. What we need to do is be in contact with them as universities. I think we have something useful that we can give to them, but more importantly, from my perspective, the university needs the reading public. The university is not going to have quality humanities and literature studies for that much longer unless there is a supportive reading public. So we need to be thinking about the value of everybody who's out there reading books. And we need to join forces, and we need to rekindle that connection.